Welcome back to Newsmaker Live. Thank you very much. I'm Clinton Reynolds. I'm here with the representatives, the top brass of the CSA, let me put it that way. President Mary Isaac and First Vice President Wilfred Pierre. Now let's talk about specific CSA issues. The Minister of the Public Service earlier this week, Monday, in fact, indicated that 4% will be given to all civil servants, notwithstanding the fact that you have refused the 4%. Now, let's go back first. Let me backtrack. What was the rationale for refusing the 4%? What was the real reason for refusing the 4%?
Okay. Different people had different reasons for refusing the 4%, because members came up to me after and explained why they individually refused the 4%, and there were different reasons. What I could see unfolding in front of me in the hall was a lot of members who were very, very dissatisfied with what government was offering, the 4% and the benefits. Given that we had already we had proposed to government that they look at the members in the lower grades 1 to 5 or 6, and give them an allowance across the board. And the allowance we asked for was $175 for members from grades 1 to 6, and from 7 to 18, $100. We further went down on that when the GNT refused to agree to give that amount. We brought it down to $120 for members from grades 1 to 6, and the others we were willing to accept $100. And they did not offer anything at all for members in the lower grades. And we would still have been willing to go down, even to cut out the members in the higher grades and take something across the board for members in the lower grades. But they were just not interested in giving anything. Now we know that the other unions got an allowance across the board that cuts right across. It's only the central service workers that did not get something that cuts right across. It's true we got things like traveling allowance, you know, things like that, like clothing allowance, shoe allowance. These things were always there. And different members are entitled to some of these things, but nothing that really cuts right across, especially in the lower grades. The members were really, really, really dissatisfied with that. I actually saw on members' face disbelief when we informed them that the government still is offering just the 4% and the benefits, right? And another thing too is that we were told if members had gone back to work, then government would continue the negotiations. At that point, they were at 4%. And we were told they were going to continue the negotiations if members. And the members went back to work with the expectation that something more would have been offered. And to come back to them and say nothing more was offered. So it's almost like they were tricked into going back to work, and government is still saying 4%, and I cannot afford it anyway, I will have to borrow.
Now, was it a message from the union to the government to shove it? If you're not going to give me, if you're not going to negotiate, if you're not going to give me what I want, then shove it. And also, I mean, the idea out there that, you know, you had very small numbers who were participating in the strike, and as a result, you know, out of vengeance or you know, that kind of thing, said we'll accept zero, so that those people who did not support us would not benefit from our hard work.
No, there was that impression as well. But what I saw on the members' faces was resignation. They just resigned themselves to the fact that, okay, it really seems that government cannot afford it.
That is
and it took them a moment to come out of that stage of surprise and shock and disbelief.
But what would I mean, push them to that point where all of a sudden, you know, after negotiations, after all was said, that they would accept then that government could not afford more than 4%?
You know, sometimes you have a revelation. Sometimes things happen and you just have this epiphany. And I sat in that hall at the head table, and this is what I saw. I saw a different membership. I saw people who just sat, and it was like, I cannot believe it. You mean they actually really cannot afford, not even...
But what new information was presented to them to have them have that epiphany, you know, that
the fact that we were saying we have even gone down as far as $120 for people in the grades from 1 to 6, and government cannot even give that. They were because you're only talking about 1,050 members, right, in those grades.
They felt the government was not sensitive to the grades 1 to 5, you know, and that is the point, you know. They felt that government would be sensitive to the grades 1 to 5, but again, they did not provide, the government did not provide that allowance. So the members were just perplexed about it, and it got to the realization, I think the whole hall got to the realization that government really had some challenges. And then people came to the mic and indicated that we'll take a 000. Now people can interpret it. A lot of people were interpreting the thing as though it's we want to spite government, throw a googly at government and things. So, but that's people's problem. We are just indicating to you how our members felt, and at that point in time, we recognize now that creates an opportunity for us to tell government we're taking 000, and we felt that government would have taken that. Go to the other union and say, well, this is a position of the largest trade union. Let us see if we can, because what we're trying to do is to grow the economy. Sacrifices have to be done. They have offered some sacrifice. Although we have agreed to the 4%, we have signed the 4% with you. Let us see if we can go according to at the CSA and take the 000. And let's see how we can partner to really get the economy going. That was what was there, but it didn't happen.
Now
it was an opportunity that was not taken.
The position of the CSA seems to have been weakened tremendously because, you know, of course, as I indicated, the public service minister came out on Monday and said that if civil servants were unwilling to accept the 4%, that they need to express that in writing to their permanent secretaries, their respective permanent secretaries. I would imagine that this would not have been the case were the CSA strong in its position and had the backing of its membership. What is the situation with the CSA, the leadership, vis-a-vis the members of the union?
Before we go into that, let me say that there were some members in the hall, Clinton, that felt we needed to regroup, we needed to re-strengthen ourselves, because that decision that information just weakened them. And some of the members were of the view that we should sing the Solidarity Song, which is a song we had been singing all the time. And then the members who were not at the meetings, on strike, a lot of them who were not on strike, who were not at the meetings, came to see what they were going to get, because they always do that, right? And these members now, who were coming there for the first time or so, said to the members, what Solidarity Song? We don't want to hear no Solidarity Song. Let us just move on. We just want to hear the rest of what it is that they're offering us. And that got some members angry, that these people were never there on strike with us. And here they are coming and even trying to prevent us from singing our Solidarity Song, which is one of the things that kept us going throughout the strike. So some of the members really took offense by that and agreed to the 000 for that reason as well. But we are saying, regardless of how or why, because different members had different reasons for agreeing to it, right? We are saying this was an opportunity for St. Lucia to take the lead in the entire region, right? And cause prices to go down, cause inflation to drop, if you understand what we're saying. Because even when I sent it out and I said doctors had already, the pediatricians, they've increased their medical fee from $150 to $200 per child. When I sent that out, we had a very prominent doctor respond to me and say, I am willing to do my part. You understand?
Dr. King.
You heard Mr. Shasney coming on and saying that he admired the effort, okay? And there were other people behind the scenes who were saying, this is not such a bad idea. Let us run with it. Because if you look at one doctor's visit, saving $50 right there, this is more than that 4% if you keep saving right down the line. We could say to the private sector, the Chamber of Commerce, let us reduce those profit margins. On medicine, some of these people are making 40% profit on medicine, 35, 40%. And if we were willing to make the sacrifice and take a 0, could the government then not ask the private sector together with ourselves to let us see what we can do to reduce on
And the
inflation.
other trade unions.
You understand?
But I mean, going back to the position of the CSA as an organization, wouldn't the minister be right, therefore, to indicate that 228 members alone voted in favor of that 0% when you have a
that
base
meeting,
of 2,500 people?
Okay, let's get to that now. That meeting was a duly constituted meeting, right? It was a general meeting called for all members, okay? Now, all CSA need for a quorum at a general meeting is 75 members, okay? At that meeting, we had over 400 and something members. But at the point where the members heard the 4%, and so a lot of the members left. But that does not change anything, because we had a quorum, we had more than a quorum to have the meeting. And once you have your quorum, any decision that is taken at that meeting is binding. You understand? It is a union decision. Even if it is 4 members that was still there at the time the vote was taken, and all 4 of them voted yes, it would not have mattered how many were there. Okay? At the meeting, we decided to go back to work. How many members were there? How many members voted? You understand? Now, the other unions that accepted the 4% and went and signed off, how many members were at those meetings? Nobody is bringing that up. How many members out of the 1,000 members they have, what percentage of their members were at those meetings? It seems everybody is asking that only of CSA. And the numbers there, that's insignificant. Because once you have a quorum, you have your meeting, and any vote that is taken stands. You understand? It is a democracy. You understand? So again, there's a message, there's a lesson for the free riders, because we have a lot of people who are in the bargaining unit, but they are not members of CSA. So these people, out of that, they must realize that they do not have a voice. Yet still,
who are you referring to when you say, you know, free riders and those who are in the bargaining unit?
Those people in the central service that are not members of CSA. They do not pay dues. They are not members of CSA. But they are in the bargaining unit. So any decision that CSA take affects them. But they don't have a say. You understand what I'm saying?
But in this case now, it didn't go to the satisfaction.
That's right, because
it was 0-0. All along it was increases.
They benefit.
Now 0-0. Now you hear about petition now because they want the 4.
Yeah.
How many members does the CSA have in the public service?
Well, that's a distortion, because we have, in the central service, I am not sure how many members we have, because our total membership is about 2,800. But that includes the statutory boards and so on and so forth. In the central service, we have about 4,500 members. You understand? So we may well have about maybe 2,000 members from the central service. Okay, maybe less than half. You understand? So that, but any decision that CSA takes in terms of negotiations and so on and so forth impacts them. You understand? So they don't have a say, because they cannot come to the union and vote. They're not members. You see?
But what can the union do, therefore? Because that has been said, that directive has been given by the minister, that if you do not wish to accept, and I don't see very many people who would be willing to write to the government to say, you know what, I don't want an increase.
Well, in the first instance,
what can CSA do? Because you took a decision, as you said, at a duly constituted meeting. Your members were the ones who voted in favor of the 0-0-0. Is there any power left within the CSA to say?
Well, let me just say, it's not necessarily about power, but we negotiate with government. You are looking at a process. We negotiate with government, the union negotiates with government. It's not me, it's not Brother Pierre here. It's the union. Now the union has negotiated and the union has taken a decision. The union has written to the employer, the government, and said, this is what we are accepting, so and so. The process should be that government respond in writing to the union, not to individual members. Individual members do not negotiate with government. Government has no right, no authority, okay, to request that individual members write to anyone.
And
But what can,
it goes
what can you, what can you do?
ILO convention, especially Convention 98, that talks about collective bargaining. I mean, that goes totally against that, you know, because government can, and I mean, what is strange that St. Lucia ratified the ILO Convention 98 collective agreement on May the 14th. That is a day, May the 14th, 1980. That was probably a day
Yesterday.
after, well, 2 days after Dr. Fletcher's pronouncement. And really, I don't think that is a right way of doing it. The process have broken down. In terms of the ILO convention, you have collective bargaining that has to take place between a recognized body. It has been recognized as the body bargaining on behalf of public servants. And that is how it happens. So when we write to government, the GNT indicating that the members at our meeting took a decision of 000, that is the process. And the other process on the other side was the government now had to write to the union and say, well, we accept it or we don't accept it, right? Or what I felt the government could have done is to say to the union, okay, let us have some discussion. You have decided on a 000. This causes an anomaly because, I mean, you can't have different grades within, different salary increases within one grade. Let us discuss it. That is the way you do
Let me
things,
jump
you
in
know.
there, but wasn't that one of the intents as well, to create that anomaly and put government on the back foot?
That is people perception.
No,
That is people perception.
because government created the anomaly. You understand? When government agreed to negotiate with TUF, it was for a reason. Some people started saying TUF is not legally this and that and so on. That is irrelevant. Government agreed to negotiate with a group of people under one umbrella.
Because of the
and
salary,
that is
the
binding,
salary that
right?
grades, yeah.
Now, that was because they did not want to create an anomaly in the system. But when government came now and pulled the police aside and negotiated with the police and signed off, government started creating the anomaly. However, that move was to divide and conquer, which is unethical. You understand? You are an employer, you are negotiating with a union on behalf of your workers. You ought not to do things that are unethical. And from that point, that is where TUF should have taken a position. They didn't for whatever reason. Okay, fine. And CSA stood by and watched because CSA was not leading the negotiations. TUF was leading the negotiations. When negotiations continued to break down, and when government again signed off on Holy Saturday with that other group, that was a further anomaly created. CSA never created the anomaly. It was government that created the anomaly. You understand? But in order to take care of that anomaly now, government must move to do something. We are not saying they cannot do it, okay? Even if there may be a legal recourse, we are not saying not to, because we believe at this point it may well be in the interest of all members, given that CSA does not represent all the members in the bargaining unit. What we are saying is that government, there is a process similar to when we went and matched when the former administration took a decision to just impose the 4%. I believe they said they couldn't pay the 7.5 and they just imposed an amount. The unions took to the streets and said they were matching on principle. Now the government has decided to come to the media to say we are imposing 4% across the board because giving the 000 creates an anomaly. But it is government themselves that created the anomaly.
You indicated a short while ago that this might represent something that is beneficial to all members in the bargaining unit. I mean, and you will not challenge that. So what is the point really? If you go through the process of negotiation and at the end of the day a rate is imposed, what is the point? And if CSA is not willing to challenge it, from what I'm hearing, then how do negotiations proceed in the future? What sort of structures and procedures and policies are left in place for collective bargaining and also negotiations between the collective bargaining unit and the government.
Well,
we are not saying that CSA is not willing to challenge it or CSA is willing to challenge it. At this point, we are just saying that there is a process that has broken down, and it ought not to have broken down if government did not cause it to break down. So people who are pointing fingers at CSA, it is not CSA that caused the process to break down. It is not CSA that created the anomaly. It is the government, the employer, that created the anomaly. And that is why you see negotiations is a process. And when you do not follow the process, you create chaos. And everybody can see now what chaos that the government has created. Because suppose we are to challenge it now, what happens? The police, they tried to pay the police, and it created a whole set of problems. They've tried to pay the others, well, they paid the 4%, I believe, but up to now they cannot pay the back pay. And one begs the question, why? You understand?
Well, we'll ask that question when we come back. You're watching Newsmaker Live. Stay with us. Our discussion with the CSA hierarchy, President Mary Isaac and the first Vice President. I'm taking the 4% off from him. Wilfred Pierre on Newsmaker Live. We'll also take your calls, so stay with us.